Welcome back to another episode of the Whatever Buddy podcast. Today's going to be a fun episode as we talk about the crazy rain happening in California. Then later, Lynne, writer and creator of the musical City of Angles. He's going to come in and tell us his story. So now's the time to sit back and have yourself a nice whiskey on the rocks. The heck with the Coke, unless it's the good stuff, you know what I mean? And enjoy the show. So with no further ado, Ryan and John.
What up, dude?
Hello, Ryan Harris. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Whatever Buddy podcast.
Cutting it close today, buddy. Cutting it close, running late, cutting it close. I'm a team player, though. I'm a team player. I'll roll with the punches.
I mean, you know how it is. I'm never on time. I mean, I was last time, and I actually was on time to my late time. I said I'd be set up by 1:30, and exactly 1:30. I didn't mean for this to happen, but at exactly 1:30, I sent you a text that said set up. So I was like on time for my late time.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing. It shouldn't be. That shouldn't be a thing. What should be a thing?
Well, it is. It is now.
What should be a thing is what. Okay, first of all, me giving you shit for being late is hilarious. But what should be a thing is like what people do to me is that if we want you to be ready by 1 o'clock, we'll tell you like 12 or 12:30. That's what I'm going to start doing.
You know what? That would probably work best.
Yeah. I know for a fact people do that to me. I don't feel bad about it though. I can't be being on time, dude. It's just not in my wiring. It's like I got to be somewhere at 4 o'clock. I'm like getting dressed at 3:53.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Because
I don't know.
It happened. Like I knew I had to be here at 1 o'clock. So at 12:15, I thought it was a good idea to sit down and take a shit. And I take long shits. So I could have done that at the room. If I do it at the room, I don't take nearly as long because I'm worried about like people knocking on the door.
Dude, I just don't have a go button, man. It's like that stand up and walk. Hit the go button. My mechanism's broke, bro.
Some people are like religiously on time. And like I think it's partially an OCD thing because like I don't know how
I'm religiously a half hour late.
That might be an OCD thing too. Like yesterday for a rehearsal, yesterday or the day before, I think it was the day before, I had to be here at 2 o'clock. I ended up showing up at 2:30 because I needed to get a drum head. And I forgot. I remembered I had to do it, but I decided, I'll leave it this time. And then I realized like, oh shit, I should have left earlier.
Oh shit.
Can I just tell you Guitar Center sucks? It sucks. Everything about Guitar Center fucking blows.
Hey man, we're looking for sponsors.
Their sponsorship deals suck anyway. They don't do shit. All I gotta say is this: I don't know if it's because I used to work at Guitar Center, why I dislike it so much, but I truly like go in there and I get the fucking like, oh, you guys are just.
I have multiple friends that have worked at Guitar Center at some point, and I have not heard one compliment.
Dude, it's where musicians go to die.
What do you mean by that?
The people. Okay, so like I got out really fast. Like I was really good at the job, and I sold a shit ton. Like my first month, I sold $32,000 worth of fucking drum stuff. Yeah. My commission on that was like $170, and I was like, "How is that even fucking possible?" Are you
serious?
Like, that's not. It's like not even. No, I'm not exaggerating. It's not
$30,000, and you made
It's somewhere between $170 and $200 I made in commission off of that. So what 1% would have been $320.
Yeah.
I did not even make 1% in commission.
0.3%.
And then they come up to me like right after this and they're like, you did such a great job this month. We've never had anybody do that in the drum department. We want you to be a manager.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, no way.
So I can work all the extra hours and get the same amount of money.
I remember that Warner Drive was really active still at the time. And I remember I found it so hard to believe that I work at the biggest music store chain in America and I cannot get off to go on tour without you giving me a hard time. You're a bunch of fucking musicians, for crying out loud.
They didn't have anything like that? Like you couldn't find someone to cover?
I went on tour, but see, that's the thing. It's like, it was like stuff like that. And I was like, well, I'm not going to find anybody to cover. I'm giving you ample notice. a lot of effing time that I'm not going to be here on these dates. I ended up obviously getting off because we did all our tours, but it was not easy. And it was just like, I remember thinking to myself, how is it like the hardest job to get off of to go on tour when this is a music store filled with all musicians? Right. And what I mean by where they go to die is you get stuck in there. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when you see guys who've worked there, like I got out after 6 months, I was gone. I was like, this place is like, you could get sucked into this place and then that is the end of it. You'll never tour. You'll hate music. You'll hate musicians. You'll hate the goddamn guitar you're selling. You'll hate it all.
You're coming in hot today. Is it like the bartender?
I was at
thing?
Guitar Center the other day.
You get a job as a bartender and like the money's good. So like you end up hanging out at night after work and you forget about why you moved. Is it like the same thing as that? Do you think?
Yeah, very much so. That and I also think cover bands would be another example of that. Because in a cover band example,
at least you're playing
the reason
music.
why yes, but the reason why I never went full tilt into the cover band world when I could have years ago is because I never wanted to taste the money. Because once you taste the money you can make from that, and you know, me and the guys in the Mercury Rise were doing it for a while there before the pandemic, and dude, like crazy money. I go and I play for 3 hours and make like $600 for myself. It was like amazing.
Well, what's wrong with that if you're still doing your band?
Here's the thing. You start making money like that, you're not willing to make that sacrifice. This is just my theory. The sacrifice of like, I'm going to go out and eat shit. Why would I go out and eat shit when I can stay here, play music, and just make a lot of, you can make a lot of money playing music at home. If you're not into the touring thing and you don't have the dreams and the goals, and then cover band's a great thing for any fucking musician who wants to make money. But my philosophy is, if you're trying to succeed in the music business as an original artist, once you taste the consistent money of a cover band, it is going to be very difficult to make the choice of going from eating really good to fucking starving again. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Listen to the smart one of the duo, buddy. I mean, make a balance, make the money, but then also, I don't know, whatever. The cover band thing was just
I mean, and I'm sure that's a thing. What were you saying? Go ahead. Sorry.
The cover band thing was just soul sucking for me. It was like you're cheering for something that I just copied. You know, like it wasn't like fulfilling, I suppose is the word.
It's not gratifying.
Yeah, that word works too.
Cover bands are cool, man. Like if I was one of those guys who like wanted a family and kids and stuff like that, but wanted to play music for a living still, I would get myself into a good cover band.
Yeah, stay in one place for the most part.
Never have to leave the town. The only downfall is, you know, you'd have to have a spouse that would be cool with you just working nights.
It was fun at first. Don't get me wrong. I had a blast at first because I was like just getting into playing music, and like cover sets are like 3 hours long. So you're playing for a long time. But as a young guy that's starting to play in front of people, I was like, this is awesome.
Was that your first gigs was playing in cover band? Like
my first gigs were cover band. It was like the whole cover band with the aspiration to be, we've been over this, the aspiration to be an original band. And, you know, so we'd mix in probably 5-10 original songs with like 20 or 30 covers, you know. I don't think we had 10 originals. It was probably less than that, but still, you know. It actually kind of worked. People liked our originals too. I mean, like it wasn't like, oh, this is when everyone goes and takes a piss. It was like people were into it, you know.
Well, did you find that people just like didn't know they weren't covers and thought that they knew the song and like tried to sing along? And
that could be the case. I had an idea one time. I don't know if this is. I'm not claiming this is a great idea, but I was talking to my buddy. I was like, let's start a cover band and let's play the songs that we think are cool. You know, like Danko Jones or, you know, things that people are going to be like, this band's awesome. It's like, they're all covers, dude. You have no idea.
Yeah.
It's really not that funny or cool of an idea. I just
that'll be a good topic. Today we have Lynne coming on to our show. And Ron's a musician who happens to also be my roommate, which is make for some good, interesting, funny conversations, maybe some bickering, and maybe you end up being the shrink for the household.
I end up being the strength here. I'm not stepping on toes. You think I have that ability?
I said shrink.
Oh, shrink. I thought you said strength.
Shrink.
I don't know what strength would.
Well, you're stronger than both Ron and I combined, but that would be a good question to ask Ron about cover band stuff. And if that was the way he started, see me, my very first show was at my high school, and it was the Fall Festival. And it was Lickety Split, which was the Hudells before the Hudells. And we played a cover song there. And that cover song was Just What I Needed by the Cars, I remember. But I remember we started, there was like 1,000 people standing in front of us.
No, there wasn't.
No, there wasn't. I swear to God. It was outside.
How big was your high school, bro?
I had 3,000 students in my high school.
Oh, geez.
For 3 grades.
That's a lot. Big.
So at the Fall Festival, I have a school of 3,000 kids, and it's the homecoming game happens, football game happens on the Fall Festival, and so like there was like 1,000 people there. We start playing. There's a ton of people in front of us. By the third song, dude, no lie, there's 4 people in front of us. Like we cleared out the fucking place. Like it was just all. It was the most. Because at first I was like, yeah, and then I was like, this sucks, but it was cool.
Soul sucking.
It was cool. That was my first experience with playing live, and it wasn't covers. I didn't start. First cover gig I played was just a few years ago, and I was actually I guess Warner Drive was the first cover gigs I've done.
Let's talk about the freaking elephant in the room, man. The rain that's going on out there. What in the world?
Dude, it's been crazy. Now, Northern California is getting it a lot worse. Like 17 people have died in Northern California.
Jeez,
dude. It's kind of crazy.
For anyone that's unaware, like rain in California, consistent rain in California, it'd be like Florida getting a snowstorm or something. But it's been raining for like 2 weeks?
On and off for 2 weeks. But when it's rained, like it rained terribly bad New Year's. It was so bad. I was up in the driving up in the hills on New Year's Eve, like early in the evening, and it was raining so hard and it was so foggy. And you know how crazy those hills are.
Yeah.
We used to live up in your bungalow and shit. Fucking couldn't see a fucking thing. Couldn't see a fucking thing. It was like insane. It was downpour rain, complete heavy fog.
On a mountain. I'm just terrified that I'm going to come back to a flooded apartment. Like I texted my landlord, the property manager a couple days ago, and was like, yo, like, because I was out there in November and it rained for like a couple days. It was not minimal, but it wasn't bad. They sure as heck weren't calling, what are they calling it? A freaking bomb cyclone or something?
Yeah, something cyclone.
And my apartment flooded. So I called the property manager and they came over and they looked at it. They're like, yeah, we'll fix the wall and just need like weatherproofing or whatever. And if they did it, I wasn't there. I never saw them do any work. So the other day I texted and was like, yo, like I'm nervous to come back to a flood. Did you guys end up following through with what you were going to do like in November? And he's like, I just checked this morning and everything was dry. So I was like, I didn't really want to get into it.
If you flooded from the rain, and now I wasn't here in November. I don't know how bad it was. What I will tell you though, the rain 2 days ago, not to mention the rain I just talked about on New Year's. I'm just talking about the rain 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Was so bad that everything was flooded. At like New Year's Eve, Sunset Boulevard was flooded on New Year's Eve.
Sunset's always flooded though, because it's on an angle and it's going downhill, and the drainage, from what I'm told, is like all dried out because it's always dry.
Yeah, you're right. So maybe that's why it was. But 2 days ago, dude, it was so bad that when I was driving home from rehearsal, I was sure like, God, I just want to get the fuck home. I can't. This is just too much. Yeah, and I'm more scared about the drivers because the thing about raining in LA is people think it's like a fucking snowstorm and they just drive like jerks.
Like slower?
Well, it's like, hey, let me slam on my brakes in the fucking huge ass puddle. Like, yo, asshole. Everything hydroplane, you fucking moron.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to slam on your brakes in front of me for a puddle. That's going to make you mess up, which in return could potentially make me hit your ass. And I don't want to hit you because then that's a big hassle for me.
Let's be honest about it. The one redeeming quality of LA, I mean, traffic sucks. It's expensive. It's overcrowded. It takes an hour to go 2 miles. The one redeeming quality is the weather is always nice. And it's been like that. Here, it's in the 50s. It's in the 50s here. It's in the 50s here. In your life, when can you when in your life do you recall the weather in the Northeast being nicer in January than Southern California?
I was watching the Eagles game the other day, and they're like 57 degrees in Philly. I'm like, wow, my car thermometer just said 57 degrees in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway,
I'll tell you this though.
Not ragging.
You know
just
what?
Saying.
As much rain as we get, we only get about 15 days a year of rain, and it still trumps everything else because the reality of it is, for 350 days of the year, we have perfect weather for the most part. So, as crazy as I am, maybe it's about time we bring in Ron Lynne. We talk about his musical. He wrote an album. He's got 2 albums coming out. He's got a bunch of albums in the past, but he's got this musical. I'm going to let him explain it. But the cool thing is I play drums on his 2 records. He just released one. He's got another one coming. I play drums on the whole thing. 20-something tracks I recorded.
Fancy, man. Let's get him. Fancy. Here we go. My man.
Ron Lynne.
This guy with the professional setup. I like it.
Hey, guys.
Up, Ron? How you doing, dude?
Hey, Ron.
Good. How are you?
Good.
Ron Lynne, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ron. Ron is a musician. Ron is the man. Ron is my roommate. I'm sure he's got a lot of funny things he could tell you. But why don't you tell the people, Ron, your story?
My story.
It began on a snowy day.
It was a dark and stormy night. I grew up in Utah. Went to school at Utah State University. Got a music degree. Plodded around the Utah music scene for a while.
Raging Utah music scene.
Yeah, our claim to fame up until it was Donnie and Marie, and then it was the Jets.
So those are the 2 biggest musical acts from Utah, because that was going to be my next question. What is the biggest band to ever come from Utah?
Yeah, that was it.
Sorry for sidetracking. Back to Ron's story. Ron was telling us he was married at the time before he moved to LA.
And then, and it was actually my wife who pushed me out here. I'd been complaining a lot. The music store where I worked was closing down, and that was sort of the last thing, you know?
Holding you there? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was complaining about Utah, and she's like, well, let's go somewhere. And my friends who were in the band, who I was in a band with later, but I hadn't been in a band with them before, were both going to LA.
Was it musical reasons that they were coming, or just random?
No. For Kevin, it kind of was. Kevin had done some work for Peace Drums when he lived in Utah, like a regional distributor. And Jesse's wife had just finished medical school, and her first choice was UCLA Harbor because she wanted to do her residency in emergency medicine, and UCLA Harbor's like the worst hospital in LA.
So you get out to LA. What got you into music in LA? Well,
Kevin and Jesse and I hadn't played in a band in Utah, but we put together a band in LA.
Why didn't you guys play in Utah?
They had a band that was it was kind of high school friends still. And I had played in a couple of different original bands and cover bands. And so we had just never played together, but we knew each other because we were all into power pop.
For anybody who may not know exactly the definition of power pop, Ron, can you give us a couple of bands that would be considered power pop?
People who are into power pop don't know the definition of power pop. They argue about it constantly. But like the classic bands are the Raspberries, the Knack, Jellyfish, Cheap Trick, kind of high energy, but still like upbeat, a lot of major key stuff, but kind of hits heavier than regular pop. Newer bands, you'd have like Weezer. There's some other bands, but like most bands just kind of touch on it here and there and don't really embrace it. And it's very nichey. Gotcha. But like Jellyfish, the Raspberries, Cheap Trick, yeah.
So you got to LA, just to give a little rundown so we can get to more details about like your musical endeavors. You came to LA, you left LA, and then you came back to LA. And when you came back the second time is when I met you. The second time around. So what's that all about?
Well, we did the band, and we were kind of in that spot, where you're starting to almost get some traction, and you start amassing like some people who were interested in your stuff, but we hadn't quite got to the point where they were people who could do anything for us. But as it started to get more serious, the realization for me was that the other guys in the band weren't as serious about it as I wanted to be. And so that
thing.
led to the end of the band. Yeah. What's that?
It's a tough thing to have everybody on the same page.
It's not only just getting people on the same page. When you get people on the same page, how long can you keep them on that page for?
Yeah.
Right. Right. The problem with Salt Lake music scene was there weren't that many people who were into going to see a band on a Tuesday night. So that was the trick of it. It wasn't necessarily that people didn't want to play out and take the starter type of gigs, but that nobody came to them.
Yeah.
You know, there's something to be said, because I do think in Los Angeles, every day seems like a weekend day. Like, it doesn't seem like, oh, it's a Monday, you're going out. That's crazy. It's like, oh, it's Monday, you're not going where?
Yeah. Or
well, I guess what happens
about
when you're in a place like Salt Lake City as opposed to in New York, Nashville, LA. You know, it's a normal city. Like, it's not known for its entertainment industry. I don't know what industry it's known for. Whatever, you know, if it's financial industry, chances are likely that most people are probably in bed by 9 and out the door by 6 a.m. So I guess that, you know, that's the difference with a place like LA or New York, and mostly LA, because LA really does revolve around the entertainment industry. So, like, nighttime life is more of a thing here. Like, you know, when I did go out, I'd go out every fucking night of the week. It didn't matter what day it was.
Yeah, and you'd have certain nights of the week where there was a club that would have a thing, you know, on a certain night. When we played a lot at the Cat Club when it was open.
I miss that place.
I do too.
We talk about the Cat Club a lot.
Yeah,
it's a good place.
Kevin,
the guy from the Stray Cats owned it. Slim Jim Phantom.
Jim Phantom, and they had a Thursday night thing called the Starfuckers, and it was originally Jim would play drums for part of it, but it was also like Eric Dover, who was in Jellyfish / a Snake Pit.
Guitar. What about the guy from Alice Cooper? What's his name? Wasn't he there?
Yeah, Roxy.
No, that was
Ryan Roxy.
Ryan Roxy.
And
then also after a while,
played for Alice Cooper too.
Yes. But they had that on Thursday nights, and that was their big night, and that place would be packed. And getting the Thursday night gig opening for them was like the holy grail at the Cat Club. So you'd have to do the Mondays and Tuesdays to get the Thursday as the night you wanted. We got it twice, and Eric Dover actually played with us. And since he was in Jellyfish, that was a big deal. I
mean, Steel Panthers night used to be every Monday nights, you know, so like there's another example of like during the week was when the Spasmatics were Sunday nights. Yeah, and you had people do residencies and stuff, but Utah was mostly weekends. So you left LA because the band fell apart. Is that what you said? My wife didn't like it here. She was not an LA person. And so when the band fell apart, she took advantage of the timing and said, hey, let's go back. And I had a grand plan, but I got back and it didn't pan. Everything happens for a reason. It doesn't work that way anymore. You know, it's like once you've been to LA, you can't go to somewhere else and go, oh, it'll be like that. I can make it like them now. Well, what was it that you thought you were going to be able to do in Salt Lake that you weren't able to do because it was Salt Lake and not LA?
Yeah, what was the plan?
Well, I was like...
Yeah, what was the plan? That's a good idea.
I was going to teach. I had taught guitar lessons before, but I had stopped doing that to work in the music store. So I was going to go back and just teach. I was going to play solo gigs, like casual restaurant gigs or whatever, where you just play acoustic guitar nonsense and not have a day job. That was the main thing. I didn't want to have a day job. But the scene was not even as good when I got back as it had been before when we left. And, I did get into a cover band, but they were a good band. There was nothing wrong with them, but they weren't working as much as I wanted.
Great segue. I'm raising my hand. We just had segue Ron just created about something that Ryan and I were talking about before you got on. We were talking about cover bands. And Ryan's first gigs playing live as a musician were in a cover band. Mine were
too.
not. So my okay. So that was my question. Were your first gigs as a professional musician playing out as a cover band?
Yeah, for sure. Like high school, not a lot of gigs when I was in high school because it was a really small town I grew up in. But in college, that was about all you could get away with in a fairly small college town. So
I regret not doing the cover band thing now.
yeah.
I told Ryan the reason I didn't do it was because I never wanted to taste the money, because I felt like if I tasted the money of a cover band that I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice and eat shit and get paid nothing and travel around and eat fucking, peanut butter sandwiches every day.
I didn't even think of it like that.
So that's why I never did it.
It was the easy opportunity to start playing music, or not easy opportunity. It was a good opportunity to have fun doing what I wanted to do. It very quickly got soul sucking, and I was like, oh, I don't want people to like cheer for something that I didn't write. Did you get that at all, or did you enjoy the cover band thing?
I've had both. Like, if you are running the cover band and can do what you want, or everybody's kind of on the same page, it's not so bad because you can throw in songs that you love to play.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a band where it's like, you got to play these tunes and it's this kind of crowd, that can get old. I was in a band where, back when I was drinking, I was in a band where I would see how drunk I could get and still play.
Hey, Jonny did that.
Yeah. So
I wasn't. Here's the difference between Ron and I. He was challenging himself. Me, I was just drinking, and we would play these shows at Perks with Warner Drive like every month for a while, and by the third set, we would do 3 1-hour sets, half originals, half covers, and then like by the third set, I was holding on with fucking. The show ended. Life, man.
The show ended when Jonny fell asleep. The show ended when Jonny fell asleep. Call it as it is.
I mean, I don't drink like that anymore, but
Let's move on to your new music, man. That's the exciting thing that we should be talking about instead of cover band stuff.
The story I just told is basically the story of the musical that I wrote, that Jonny played drums for the performances.
We did forget in that story that Ron did come back to L.A., or did we say that?
Well, I did come back to L.A., yeah.
Yeah.
And then spent
without
a few
the
years
wife.
Without the wife. And spent a few years bouncing around sort of aimlessly without any motivation. Yeah.
Right. I only bring in that fact because that does play into what Ron's musical thing is.
Well, it's funny because where we left the story right at the end there was the end of Act 1 of the musical. And Act
before
1
I interjected with my
well,
bullshit.
when I came back, because that was that's right where Act 1 ends, is with the characters splitting up, and then Act 2 is the character, me, comes back to LA. So and Act 1 is what I just released.
Okay, so you just released Act 1. So what are we talking about? You got to explain to the people what's going on, because it sounds very confusing. We're talking about music, we're talking about bands, now we're talking about acts, which is like acting. So please elaborate.
So when I quit drinking, which is coming up on 10 years in about a month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I
can't believe it's been 10 years. I remember.
I know, because I've known you longer than that. So yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I met you at the bar.
Yeah. But I started also
just fun fact. Me and Ron would get drunk. And when Ron used to drink, we used to argue for whatever reason, because we're both very opinionated guys that when we're drunk, we just, neither one of us back down. So we would fucking just hash shit out about music. And you'll learn, if we sat here long enough, you'd learn that Ron and I, as much as we have in common in music, we kind of come from different spectrums of the musical spectrum. So it did stand for some good conversations. I do want to say, though, in the 10 years he's been sober, I can only recall 2 arguments in 10 years, where when he drank, it was probably 2 arguments a day at times.
Yeah.
So,
well, one of the things I gave up with drinking was worrying about shit that isn't a big deal. And I think a lot of our arguments probably stemmed from arguing about shit that isn't really that big of a deal.
Totally. Anyway, back to the fucking thing. I'll stop.
Jonny the Interrupter has
I'm away
entered
from
the
the
chat.
microphone.
Let the man talk.
Away from the microphone.
Yeah, turn that thing off.
I'm not near the microphone.
So when I quit drinking, I started exploring writing. I had done a New Year's resolution like the year after I quit drinking that I was going to say yes to everything. You've heard that's one of the things people do sometimes. And I started saying yes to stuff. And 2 of the things I said yes to were musical theater projects, playing guitar for one and being a stagehand for one. And I thought, I've got all these songs that kind of tell a story.
Did you say yes to the guy in the bathroom who asked for a hand job?
No.
You said yes to everything. I'm away from the microphone again.
He can't.
I wanted to know where the parameters were.
He can't take a good thought or a good whatever the word, a good parable or whatever, without adding some kind of dumbass twist to it.
Well, and we weren't in a bathroom, so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It doesn't count. Right.
Right.
Anyways.
And so I did the 2 musical theater things, and I was like, I did theater in high school, but I left it when I started doing music, and I was like, I kind of missed some aspects of that, and decided to write a musical. So I wrote a stage musical, and it was the story of the last few years of my life, from Salt Lake to LA, back to Salt Lake, and back to LA.
What made you pick that topic for your musical?
One of the projects I did where I played guitar was a musical called The Last 5 Years. There was a movie not too long ago. It's pretty well known in musical theater circles. And it's the story basically of a guy's 5-year relationship from start to finish when it ended. And the story had enough parallels to my story that the songs I had that I hadn't released on an album all kind of were parts of that story. And I thought, I've got a very similar story. I've got a bunch of the songs already that fit right in. I just have to maybe tweak a few lyrics and things like that. I could write a musical. I'm halfway there. I've probably got a handful of songs already that would work. And so I wrote the musical.
Are you going to turn it into a production one day?
Well, we did a short run at a theater here.
Okay.
Yeah, we did 2 shows, and I didn't know exactly what to do with it for a while, but I kept writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote screenplays, TV pilots, and then I started thinking about recording the soundtrack for the musical, so recording the songs from the musical. And that took a long time for a variety of reasons. It wasn't a main priority. But now it's pretty much done. Act 1 has been, I divided it into 2 parts because this is one of those long, drawn-out discussions Jonny and I have had about the new music industry and how things work, and it's a lot of singles and EPs. And
it would be interesting to get Ryan's take on this. Ryan, let me present you with the debate that we had.
My take is that it's an idea that is not the current scene of music. You sound like you have a musical that you should, in my mind, don't let me, whatever, I'm thinking like it would be cool to make it into some kind of a theater play,
Yeah, well, it was. And I think that I'm starting to toy with the idea because I've been getting into filmmaking and stuff, done a couple of short films, worked on several more for other people. And they're all small budget things. And I'm thinking I can figure out a way to make it into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
These new fucking iPhones are like the most amazing things ever. You can like the best.
Yeah. I've shot 2 short films on my phone.
Harris, the debate though, I want to ask you what your thoughts are. Our debate was always he wanted to just release the whole Act 1 as a whole, as one shot.
Well, Act 1 and Act 2, the entire double album.
Right, which is like 20 songs, right?
Yeah.
So I had the debate with Ron, and listen, I come from the same school of thought as Ron, where I don't like this whole like release everything as singles. However, it really is a full circle situation because back in the 50s and 60s, they only did singles. You know what I mean? The album thing didn't come to like the 70s or late 60s or whatever. So, or I don't know when, sometime in the 60s. So the debate I always had with Ron was, because I was being encouraged to do that from the people that I've been working with. Do it as singles, and then when you get done, you release each track as a single, And the theory behind it is if you release a whole album, your first track is usually going to be the one that gets all the fucking plays, and the other tracks will never get nearly as many. Whereas you release a single, then each track is getting individual attention. And then when you release the last single, that last single is the day the record comes out. So the record comes out and you get the last song, and now you have all 10 songs in one spot. But Ron didn't at first like the idea, but nor did I, nor do I still not like the idea, but it's just kind of like what people do. What are your thoughts on that process, Harris?
Well, I mean, if this is like a theatrical piece, I'm not trying to make it different from any other album, but I mean, like, you've heard of like concept albums or something where they have like a theme running throughout. And if you're making a video for each song, that could be a cool way to relate it into something down the road that may be a production. I mean, just my thought.
Like play out the story with each video.
Like the story of each video. I'm assuming each song has a video that is pretty interpretive of whatever it's about. So you could turn that into a theatrical production pretty easy in my brain.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it led me to thinking maybe I will do an actual movie, because some of the videos.
Do you realize that Ryan was Ryan was Canada in that answer?
No, I wasn't.
No, I mean,
he was neutral as fucking
Switzerland.
Switzerland. That's it, not Canada, but Canada's
as
neutral as Switzerland.
I wasn't at all. I understand releasing Act 1 and Act 2, and here's my double album, and it's the story of my life, or this and that, and like that's cool. And growing up in an album time, that's the way that it was done. But what I'm saying is that in the current world, the question that you asked me was, in a current world, what do you think would be the good idea? So just
say yes. Do you agree with me? Yes or no answer, Harris. Fuck!
Well, here's the interesting thing. So I did 5 singles from Act 1, 10 songs. I did 5 singles, did a video for each one, did all the social media hoo-ha, posting daily, basically went and looked at how to do this in the modern day, read a bunch of articles and all that kind of stuff. And it said, this is what you do once a month or once every 6 weeks. You release a single, you promote it on social media, do all of that. I did all of that. I got more traction when I released the Act 1 10 songs as a whole. I got more people went and listened to songs from that than from the individual singles.
So, Ron, what would your pick a song from what you've released that you think like is what you're the most proud of? Like, somebody, I want you to go listen to this first.
That's an easy one, because it's the song Ride of Your Life. I got most of the actors who were in the stage musical to come back and sing on the record, all but one or two of them. And it's sung by a guy named Braden Haid, and he's pretty active in local theater. Yeah.
Strong name.
And I specifically brought him in for the role because it's a really high tenor character. Like a lot of the songs are pretty high. And
he knew a guy who had his balls snipped at birth, so he's like, this is the perfect guy.
Well, his audition
got the jokes.
His audition reel that I saw had him doing Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons a cappella. So he had recorded all the different tracks, and he was doing like some of the ridiculous like stuff that they did. If you're familiar with the Four Seasons, Frankie Valli, like he did a lot of like falsetto kind of stuff. So, but the song "Ride of Your Life," it's very, very much like the epitome of one aspect of power pop, where it's complex harmonically. It's got some different feels in it. It's like everything about it really just screams like this is, to some people anyway, this is what power pop is.
You got like, I mean this in the kindest of ways. It's like very Beatles harmony kind of going on.
That's kind of where a lot of people think that it was the Beatles and the Beach Boys are kind of the genesis of power pop. Not Genesis the band, but like the start of power pop. Yeah, because that's a whole different discussion of prog rock.
Isn't that Phil Collins? That's Phil Collins solo, by the way.
That's Phil Collins, yeah.
I'll put your Spotify link in the information.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. There's a nice diversity of singers on the record. Ron sings some of the songs. Braden sings, I don't know how many, but there's like a couple of different girls that sing on some of the stuff. And they all have really great voices. So there's a lot of diversity to hear it, to listen to it. I mean, going against the whole thing about singles that I say, when I do listen to it from top to bottom, it's an easy listen. And I find it almost easier to listen to it that way than individually, just because, I don't know if it's a generational thing, because I don't know if everybody believes with this, but I do believe that records, concept or not, are meant to have a flow, and that when there's an order of songs in a certain order, it's meant to flow a certain fucking way. So like when you break it up,
like
you release track 7 first, right? You release track 7 first. It's not going to have the same effect as coming after track 6 in that order,
Particularly if it's theatrical. I mean, that just is it once again reminds me of a concept album or something. And I don't know your thoughts on concept albums. I don't mean any offense if you hate them, but I mean, because they're polarizing.
I'm a progressive rock guy. I like power pop and progressive rock are my two favorite genres. So like I'm way into the prog rock stuff, which probably is why I was so steadfastly against the concept of just singles, because I thought what Jonny just said was a big deal to me. It was like, this is an album that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and to piecemeal it out. But then at the same time, you can listen to Comfortably Numb, and you don't have to listen to the rest of the album to appreciate Comfortably Numb or,
So what is it, if you had to sum up the musical and your project for the people right now, in 30 seconds, if you could just tell people exactly what you want. You got a 30-second commercial to fucking just say, this is what it is. I want you to listen to it. What would you say to get people to listen to this in a short period of time? Like,
no pressure.
Well, no pressure, right? I mean, it's a soundtrack for a musical, but it's kind of a concept album in a sense that the songs do tell a little bit of a story, but you don't have to have the story to appreciate the songs. They're catchy, they're poppy, there's big hooks, a lot of vocal harmonies, a lot of energy from the music. Some of it's like straight mainstream rock, and some of it's a little weirder, a lot of variety, a bunch of good singers. And it's the kind of stuff, there's a lot of stuff in there that will stick in your head. And that's, to me, that's always the sign of a song that I like, is if like later in the day I'm going, oh, I remember that part again and again, and I want to go back and listen to it again. Mm-hmm. And that's hopefully what this is for people. That's the
thing that stuck out to me the coolest was I wasn't expecting a variety of singers, and I liked that. That was cool to me.
Yeah, it's something that I am exploring now in future work, not musicals, but just like songs. I'm like, I really want to get somebody to sing this song, or to duet this song with me, or, writing for female vocals.
Dude, duet with Jonny.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm very nasally. Look at this thing.
I can just get him coughing.
Yeah.
And sample it. It'll be like the beginning of Sweet Leaf.
You got play. Yeah. Sounds exactly like that. So the Act 2, we could expect it somewhere around the February time period. You're going to be doing singles and videos again. And then whenever Act 1 and 2 are out, is that the end of it? Or are you going to try to get into the theater thing with it?
I don't think I'll go back to the theater with it right away. I mean, maybe someday. But I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to make a movie out of it.
That'd be cool.
And shoot it
I
myself.
think a movie,
like an independent thing.
Cool.
If done the right way, that could be fucking really fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm playing around with some ideas of how to adapt it without just trying to make an actual regular movie like La La Land or something, but to kind of hold on to some of the theater aspects of it, rather than just saying, hey, we're going to make a big glossy movie. Plus, I don't have any money, and I don't expect to get a lot of money for it, so I've got to figure out a way to do it cheap too.
I was going to say, man, iPhone Eddie and the Cruisers, dude. iPhone Eddie and the Cruisers.
Yeah.
What a great movie.
Well,
one of my fucking favorite movies. I love that movie.
Do you know the movie Once? The movie Once?
Once?
No, but I know the record, Once Bitten, Twice Shy.
No, Once. It was an Irish movie a few years ago. One of the guys from The Commitments, the guitar player from the Commitments, made this movie once, and it's a music-based, music-themed movie. They shot it on the cheap. They didn't get permits. They were running around Dublin, shooting on street corners, not getting permits for it, stuff like that. So there's definitely, and it won an Academy Award for the song "Falling Slowly." So there's definitely models for making that happen.
Before we wrap this up, because we're going to wrap this up, I had a pet peeve on this episode. Ron lives in the same place as me, so I'm curious if Ron has seen this fucking asshole with the white fucking Tesla parking in front of the goddamn fire hydrant every day. You seen this guy? That entitled fuck?
I saw a Tesla parked in front of the fire hydrant recently, yes.
Yeah. Last 2 days, motherfucker.
You know,
anyway,
be warned.
As soon as they start ticketing on that street again, because like every night you'll see 3 or 4 cars in the red zone. After that last parking place, which I'm in right now, the super parking spot, but there will be 3 or 4 cars in the red.
That dude's probably listening to this podcast, and he's gonna hear the wrath that Jonny just put out there, and he's gonna go move his car for you. I
mean, I've stopped temporarily.
I could tell you things that I
in
won't.
The fire hydrant for like a minute, but it's
I
a
explained
fire hydrant.
that.
There's
It's
a reason
acceptable.
you don't park in front of it.
Yeah, unless you got a Tesla and you say, I own a Tesla, it fucking doesn't matter. And on that note, everybody, make sure you go out and you check out City of Angles. Ron Lynne over here, he's got fucking a great thing going on over there. He's going to make a movie. He's got another one coming out in February. The Act 1 is out already. Go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your music. Check it out.
Yeah, City
Ron
of
Lynne,
Angles, not Angels.
Angles.
City of Angles.
Right, Angles.
Yeah, you said it right.
Not like the Water Drive album, City of Angels, which we do have, and you have City of Angles. It's an angle, like a 90-degree angle. So make sure you go and you check out Ron's stuff. Lucky for me, I got out of here unscathed without anybody finding out about my crazy living ways. And on that note, make sure you like, subscribe, and report. And we shall see you sometime within the next 2 weeks, as we're going every other week these days. So everybody, thank you for listening to the What Everybody podcast once again. Talk to you soon, and have a great 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
See you. Thanks, Ron.
Hi, guys. Yep.